Have you ever been humiliated in front of the exact person who would decide your future, and said absolutely nothing? That is what happened to me. And what happened next changed everything. My name is Adrian Cole. Wait, no. Let me start over because even my name matters to this story. My name is Adrian Wells. I am a 38-year-old co-founder of a mid-sized marketing and brand strategy firm called Crestline Group. I say co-founder carefully, because that word became the most important word of my life on a Thursday afternoon in a glass-walled conference room, in front of a client worth $12 million a year. But before I get there, you need to understand who I am and how I got there. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My parents were teachers. We were not rich. I worked my way through college, studied business and communications, and graduated with a head full of ideas and about $40,000 in student loan debt. At 24, I got a job at a tiny startup called Crestline. There were 4 of us. We shared one printer and took turns buying coffee. The founder was a man named Raymond Bosch. He was loud, confident, and charming in a way that made clients trust him immediately. I was the quiet one who did the actual work. That combination, we thought, would make us unstoppable. For a while it did. In those early years, Raymond and I built something real together. I wrote every pitch deck. I designed every brand strategy. I stayed late rebuilding proposals Raymond had promised clients without consulting me first. I never complained. I believed in the company. I believed in what we were building. Raymond handled the handshakes and the lunches. I handled the thinking. It worked because we respected each other, or at least I thought we did. By year 3, Crestline had grown from 4 people to 22. We had real clients, real revenue, a real office with walls that were not shared with a sandwich shop. What most people did not know, what Raymond never mentioned in interviews or at industry events, was that I owned 49% of Crestline Group. It was written into our original partnership agreement, signed and notarized at a law office on a rainy Tuesday in March, 8 years before any of this happened. Raymond owned 51%. He called himself the CEO. I carried the title of Chief Strategy Officer. On paper we were partners. In the hallways of Crestline, I was just the quiet guy who sat in the corner office and made Raymond look brilliant. I was fine with that. Until I was not. The shift happened slowly. Raymond started winning bigger clients, and with bigger clients came a bigger version of Raymond. He bought a new car. He started wearing suits that cost more than my first month's rent. He spoke at conferences and never once mentioned my name. At first I told myself it did not matter. The work was good. The company was growing. My equity stake was growing with it. But then small things started happening. Meetings I used to be included in suddenly had different attendees. My name disappeared from pitch presentations. Raymond started introducing me to new clients as his head of strategy, which sounds impressive until you realize he had stopped saying partner altogether. Noticed. I said nothing. I have always believed that the best response to a problem is to understand it fully before reacting. My father used to say, "Never move a chess piece out of frustration. You will always regret it." So I watched. I documented. I kept doing my job at the highest level I knew how. And then Donovan Marsh walked through our doors. Donovan Marsh was the chief marketing officer of a retail company called Halcyon Brands. Halcyon was expanding across 4 new markets and needed a firm to lead their full brand overhaul. The contract was worth $12 million over 3 years. It was the biggest opportunity Crestline had ever seen. Raymond called me into his office on a Monday morning, 2 weeks before the Halcyon pitch. He was standing at his window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city like he owned it. "I need you to build the strategy deck," he said without turning around. "Of course," I replied. "What angle are we taking?" "Market repositioning. They want to reach younger consumers without losing their existing base. Figure it out." He said it the way people say, "Pick up milk on the way home." Visual. Like $12 million was an item on a grocery list. I spent 11 days on that deck. I interviewed Halcyon's internal team members. I studied their competitor data. I built a complete 3-year brand architecture with phased rollouts, messaging frameworks, and projected ROI benchmarks. Raymond reviewed it the night before the pitch. "Good," he said, scrolling through it quickly. "I'll take it from here." I assumed that meant he would practice presenting it. That is what it usually meant. It did not mean that this time. The Halcyon pitch was scheduled for a Thursday at 2 in the afternoon. The conference room had been reserved, the good coffee had been ordered, and our assistant had placed fresh printed copies of the deck on the table. Donovan Marsh arrived with 2 colleagues. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. He looked like the kind of person who could tell within 30 seconds whether someone was wasting his time. Raymond greeted him with that full-voltage smile he reserved for moments exactly like this one. I sat to Raymond's left. I had a copy of the deck in front of me and a yellow notepad beside it. Raymond had asked me to attend for support, which I understood to mean he wanted me there in case any technical questions came up. What I did not understand, what I could not have prepared for, was what Raymond said 4 minutes into the presentation. He was explaining our market segmentation approach when Donovan Marsh interrupted him with a question about the data sourcing methodology. It was a smart question, detailed question, the kind that required a real answer. Raymond paused. He looked at the slide. He looked at Donovan. And then he looked at me. "Adrian can answer that," Raymond said. "He is our data guy." Something in his voice was different, flat, almost dismissive. I answered the question clearly and accurately. Donovan nodded, satisfied. Raymond continued presenting. 20 minutes in, Donovan's colleague asked about the Phase 2 activation timeline. Again Raymond hesitated. Again he gestured toward me. "Adrian put the timelines together. He handles the detail work." Detail work. I let it pass. Then came the moment I will never forget for the rest of my life. Donovan Marsh leaned forward and said, "I have to be honest, Raymond. This strategy is impressive. Very thorough. Whoever built this framework really understands brand architecture." Raymond smiled. It was the smile of a man about to accept a compliment that did not belong to him. "Thank you," he said. "We put a strong team on it." Donovan looked at me briefly, then back at Raymond. "Is Adrian part of your strategy team?" Raymond did not miss a beat. "Adrian is our support staff," he said. "Good at research. We keep him in the background. That is where he works best." The room was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Counted them. Support staff. I sat with those 2 words while Raymond kept talking. I watched Donovan Marsh give me a brief, polite smile, the kind you give someone who has just been visibly diminished in front of you. His colleagues looked away. Raymond moved to the next slide. I did not react. I did not frown. I did not correct him. My pen was still touching the paper. I moved it slowly and wrote 3 words on my notepad. Not yet. I had learned something important over 8 years of building Crestline from nothing. Public reactions belong to the person who loses control. And I had no intention of losing anything that day. Instead, I thought about a conversation I'd had 3 weeks earlier. A conversation Raymond knew nothing about. 6 weeks before the Halcyon pitch, I had been contacted by a man named Stuart Farrow. Stuart was a corporate attorney who had handled our original partnership agreement back when Crestline was 4 people and 1 printer. He had called to let me know that he was retiring and was transferring my legal files to a new firm. During that call, he mentioned something I had not thought about in years. "Your equity terms include a review clause," Stuart had said. "You may want to revisit it." I had written that down too. After the pitch, Donovan Marsh shook Raymond's hand and said his team would be in touch. He shook my hand last. When he did, he held it a half-second longer than necessary and said, "Good work on the framework." He knew. Or at least he suspected. Raymond clapped me on the shoulder on the way out of the conference room. "Good job staying in your lane today," he said, already moving toward his phone. I went back to my office and closed the door quietly. I pulled out the copy of our partnership agreement I had requested from Stuart Farrow's office 2 weeks earlier. I had been rereading sections of it carefully. Not because I expected to use it, But because I was the kind of person who believed in knowing exactly what was written on every document that had my name on it. The agreement was 11 pages long. Page 7 had a clause I had read so many times the edges of that page were soft from handling. It said that in the event of a material misrepresentation of a partner's role to clients or external stakeholders, particularly in circumstances that could affect the partner's professional standing or the valuation of their equity stake, the affected partner had the right to call a full partnership review. 8 years ago, that clause had felt like legal boilerplate. That Thursday it felt like a key. I did not call my attorney that night. I slept on it. My father's rule again. Never move in frustration. I spent the weekend reviewing 3 years of emails, meeting notes, and presentation records. I was thorough and careful. I was looking for a pattern, not just one incident. What I found was clear. Over 37 client interactions in the past 3 years, Raymond had introduced me as support staff, research, our numbers person, or simply part of the team. Never as a partner, never as co-founder, and never by my actual title of Chief Strategy Officer. I had the emails where clients wrote to Raymond asking for follow-up from your researcher. I had pitch recordings where my work was presented as Raymond's own thinking. I had invoices where the client-facing team was listed with Raymond at the top, and my name absent entirely. I organized everything into a folder. Then I called my attorney. Her name was Patricia Odom. She was sharp, careful, and did not waste words. I explained the situation. I sent her the documents. She called me back in 40 minutes. Adrian, she said, this is textbook misrepresentation of partner standing. The clause on page 7 is enforceable. Do you want to use it? I told her I was not sure yet. Then tell me when you are, she said. And call me before you do anything. The following Tuesday, Raymond called me into his office again. Halcyon had responded. They were moving to a second meeting, a deeper working session where they wanted to meet the core creative team. I want you there, Raymond said. But let me do the talking. You know how clients get confused when too many voices are in the room. I looked at him for a moment. Sure, I said. He seemed relieved. He had expected pushback and had prepared for an argument that never came. That was his first mistake of the week. His second mistake came 2 days later, when he sent Halcyon a revised team overview document for the second meeting. I was listed as Adrian Wells, Senior Research Analyst. I had never held that title. It had never appeared in any contract, any HR file, or any legal document. Raymond had simply created it and attached my name to it. I forwarded the document to Patricia Odom. She replied with one sentence. This just made our case significantly stronger. I printed her reply and added it to the folder. The second Halcyon meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday, exactly 1 week after the first one. Raymond spent the days between preparing what he called his vision presentation. He barely slept. He practiced in the conference room after hours. He was chasing this contract with everything he had. Prepared to. I reached out to Donovan Marsh directly. Not by phone but by email. Professional, brief, and specific. I introduced myself using my correct title. Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder, Crestline Group. I attached a 1-page document. It was not the full strategy deck. It was a concise clarification of the brand architecture framework, who had built it, how the methodology had been developed, and what my direct role in the company actually was. I did not say anything negative about Raymond. I did not make accusations. I simply presented the facts with supporting references, the way I always presented data. The next morning, I had a reply from Donovan. He said, "Thank you for the clarity, Adrian. Had a feeling. Would you be available for a brief call before Thursday?" I replied, "Yes." Then I called Patricia and told her it was time. Patricia filed the partnership review notice that afternoon. Under our agreement, once filed, it required Raymond to be formally notified within 24 hours. It also froze any new client commitments that could affect equity valuation until the review was complete. The notification reached Raymond the following morning, Wednesday, 1 day before the Halcyon meeting. I was in my office when his door opened hard enough to bounce off the wall. He stood in my doorway, the legal notice in his hand. His face a color I had no name for. "What is this?" he said. "A partnership review," I replied. "It is outlined in our agreement. Page 7. You are trying to sabotage the Halcyon deal." His voice was low and tight. "I am exercising a legal right," I said. "The deal is not affected by the review. Only new commitments are frozen." He stared at me. "After everything I built." "Everything we built," I said quietly. He left without another word. I returned to my screen. That evening I had a 30-minute call with Donovan Marsh. I want to be completely honest about what I said and what I did not say. I did not tell him about the partnership review. That was a private legal matter and it was not his concern. I did not say anything disparaging about Raymond. Not one word. What I did was answer his questions directly. He asked me about my role in developing the Halcyon strategy. I explained it fully. He asked about my background and how long I had been with the company. I told him the truth. 8 years, co-founder, 49% equity stake. There was a pause. "Raymond introduced you as support staff," Donovan said. It was not quite a question. "He did," I replied. Another pause. "I appreciate you being straight with me," he said. "I always am," I said. We ended the call professionally. He thanked me. Thanked him. That was all. But I knew, the way you know when a door has shifted on its hinges, that something had changed permanently. Thursday arrived. Raymond had composed himself overnight. He was in the office early, dressed precisely, performing confidence the way actors perform calm in a scene they know is about to go wrong. He greeted me in the hallway outside the conference room as if Wednesday had not happened. "Let's make today count," he said. "Yes," I agreed. We walked in together. Donovan Marsh was already seated. His 2 colleagues were with him. And there was a third person I had not seen before, a woman with a leather portfolio and reading glasses on top of her head. Raymond extended his hand to Donovan. Donovan shook it. Then he looked past Raymond and extended his hand to me first. "Adrian," he said. "Good to see you." Raymond's smile did not fall. But I watched something shift behind his eyes. "Let's get started," Raymond said, moving toward the head of the table. Donovan stopped him gently. "Actually, Raymond, before we begin, we have reviewed the framework Adrian submitted. Our team feels it would be most productive if he led today's session. We have specific questions tied to the strategic architecture." The room was very quiet. Raymond sat down. I stood up. I want to be clear. I did not feel triumphant in that moment. I did not feel satisfied or vindicated. Felt calm. The same calm I had felt in the first meeting when I wrote those 3 words on my notepad. I led the session for 90 minutes. I walked Donovan's team through the brand architecture, the phased activation plan, and the 3-year measurement framework. I answered every question. I acknowledged every concern. When I did not have an immediate answer, I said so clearly and provided a timeline to follow up. Raymond sat to my right throughout. He contributed twice, both times to agree with something I had already said. When the session ended, Donovan's third colleague, the woman with the leather portfolio, leaned forward. "This is the most thorough brand strategy presentation we have received this year," she said. "We are prepared to move forward." She looked at me when she said it. Raymond reached for a handshake. Donovan gave it to him. But it was the handshake you give to someone in the room, not the handshake you give to the person you are trusting with $12 million. That handshake went to me. After Halcyon left, Raymond and I were alone in the conference room. He stood at the window, the same pose as always, hands in pockets, looking at the city. "You went around me," he said. "I contacted a client using my correct title," I replied. "You filed a legal review the day before the biggest meeting of this company's life. The review does not affect existing client relationships. You know that." He turned around. For the first time since I had known him, he looked genuinely uncertain. "What do you want, Adrian?" I had thought carefully about this question. I had written the answer down 4 days earlier and revised it twice. I want what the agreement says I am entitled to, I said. An accurate representation of my role. A correction of the misrepresentation to current clients. And a formal review of operational responsibilities going forward. He looked at me for a long time. And if I don't agree, then Patricia continues the review process, I said. And we let the agreement determine the outcome. He looked back at the window. I need time, he said. You have until Monday, I said. And I walked out. The weekend was quiet. I did not fill it with anxiety or rehearsed conversations. I cooked. I read. Took long walks. I had made my position clear, and now the outcome would go one of two ways. Either Raymond would come to the table or he would not. I was prepared for both. Patricia called me on Saturday afternoon to update me on the review status. She had reviewed the misrepresentation documentation and confirmed it was solid. She had also flagged something I had not noticed. In the revised team overview Raymond sent Halcyon, she said. He listed himself as sole founder of Crestline Group. Not CEO. Not majority owner. Sole founder. When did he send that version? Yes. It was in the introductory packet sent to Donovan's team before the first meeting, she said. 6 weeks ago. I closed my eyes for a moment. Patricia, I said. Yes. Add that to the file. Monday came. Raymond walked into my office at 9 in the morning. He sat down across from me without being invited. He looked like a man who had not slept well in 3 days, which, based on what I knew of him, was probably accurate. He placed a single sheet of paper on my desk. It was a handwritten list. 7 items. I recognized his handwriting. Sharp, slightly forward-leaning, always in blue ink. I read it without picking it up. The list outlined what he was prepared to offer. A formal correction sent to all current clients, an updated company profile restoring my co-founder title, a revised operational structure giving me joint authority over client strategy decisions, and a pause on any further legal proceedings. It was more than I expected. But there was one thing missing. What about the sole founder claim in the Halcyon packet? Yes. He stiffened. That was a drafting error. It was sent to a $12 million client, I said. It needs to be corrected directly. In writing. To Donovan Marsh. He looked at the ceiling. He exhaled slowly. Fine, he said. Today, I said. He picked up the paper and stood. Today, he agreed. The correction letter went to Donovan Marsh that afternoon. Raymond wrote it. Patricia reviewed it before it was sent. It stated clearly that Adrian Wells was co-founder and chief strategy officer of Crestline Group, and that any prior documentation suggesting otherwise had been issued in error. Donovan replied within the hour. His reply was 2 sentences. Noted and appreciated. Looking forward to working with the full Crestline team. The Halcyon contract was finalized the following week. $12 million 3 years, with me listed as lead strategist. Raymond and I met with Patricia the week after that to formally document the operational restructuring. The co-founder title was restored across all company materials. My name went back onto pitch decks. Client communications were updated. Raymond was still CEO. He still had 51%. But the quiet arrangement, where he performed and I disappeared, was over. He shook my hand at the end of the meeting. It was not a warm handshake, but it was a real one. You could have burned the whole thing down, he said quietly. I know, I replied. Why didn't you? I thought about it for a second. Because I built it too, I said. In the months that followed, something unexpected happened. Clients started engaging with me directly. Not because I pushed for it, but because the Halcyon relationship had made my role visible in a way it had never been before. Donovan mentioned me by name in an industry panel he spoke on. That mention led to 2 inbound inquiries from companies who wanted to speak to the strategist at Crestline. My name was in the room now. Not because Raymond put it there, but because the work had always been there. It just finally had a face attached to it. I hired 2 junior strategists. I built a small team under my direct leadership for the first time. Raymond and I established a clearer division. He managed business development and external relationships. I managed strategy and delivery. It worked better than anything we had tried before. Not because we suddenly liked each other more, but because the structure was finally honest. And honest structures, I have learned, are the only ones that hold weight over time. The company grew 22% in the year following the Halcyon contract. We were nominated for 2 industry awards. Raymond gave a speech at one of the ceremonies. He mentioned my name in the first paragraph. Small things matter when they are true. I want to tell you about a conversation I had with Donovan Marsh about 6 months after the Halcyon contract was signed. We were at an industry dinner, the kind with too many speeches and not enough food. He found me near the back of the room, where I had retreated from the noise. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Go ahead," I said. "In that first meeting, when Raymond called you support staff, what were you thinking?" Smiled. "I was thinking that I had 11 pages of a partnership agreement that said otherwise." He laughed. "But you didn't say anything." "Not then," I said. He nodded slowly. "Most people would have reacted. Made a scene. Most people react before they know what they have," I said. "I needed to know what I had first." He was quiet for a moment. "You know what I told my team afterward," he said. "I said the smartest person in that room never raised his voice. I thought about my father's rule. Never move a chess piece out of frustration. Someone taught me that," I said. About 8 months after the Halcyon contract, Raymond and I sat down for what we had started calling our quarterly reviews. They were new, part of the restructured agreement. He came in with numbers. The company was performing well. Our pipeline was strong. A new client, a logistics firm called Beacon South, had approached us about a significant rebranding project. "I want you to lead the pitch," Raymond said. I looked at him. In 8 years he had never said those words. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there for the relationship side," he added. "But the strategy is yours." He nodded. He started to leave, then stopped at the door. "Adrian," he said. "Yes. I underestimated you. For a long time. I thought carefully before I replied." "I know," I said. "But the company didn't suffer for it in the end." He nodded once. Then he left. That was the closest thing to an apology I ever received from Raymond Bosch. It was not much. But it was honest. And after 8 years, I had learned to value honesty more than almost anything else. I think about what I could have done differently in those early years. I could have demanded public recognition sooner. I could have corrected Raymond the first time he introduced me as part of the team, instead of his partner. I could have called Patricia years before I did. Maybe I should have. I genuinely do not know. What I do know is this. Silence is not the same as weakness. There is a version of quiet that is resignation, where you accept being diminished because you do not believe you deserve better. I was never that version. My quiet was different. It was the quiet of someone who was watching carefully, building carefully, and waiting for the moment when the truth could not be argued with. It was the quiet of someone who knew what was written on page 7. Not everyone has a partnership agreement. Not everyone has legal leverage. But everyone has something. A record, a skill, a relationship, a history of work that belongs to them and cannot be taken away. The question is whether you know what you have before someone tries to take it. I did. Just barely in time. Crestline Group is still operating today. We are 17 clients strong, 31 employees, and in the middle of our most profitable year since founding. Raymond is still CEO. I am still Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder. On every document, every deck, every company profile. The Halcyon relationship is in its 2nd year and performing above projections. I still have the notepad from that first pitch meeting. Kept it. The page where I wrote "not yet" is folded at the corner. I do not keep it for sentiment. I keep it as a reminder that the best decisions are usually the ones made slowly and quietly, not loudly and fast. If I could go back and speak to the version of myself sitting in that conference room, the one who had just been called support staff in front of a $12 million client, I would tell him this. You have more than you think. You always have. The people trying to make you small are usually the ones most afraid of how large you actually are. Do not shrink for them. Do not explode for them either. Just know what you have, keep it safe, and use it clearly when the moment is right. The moment will come. It always does. So here is what I need you to take away from this story. First, know your agreements. Know your contracts, your titles, your rights. Read every document that carries your name. Raymond made his biggest mistake because he assumed I had forgotten what I signed 8 years ago. I had not forgotten a single word. Second, calm is not the same as doing nothing. Every action I took was deliberate and documented. I was not passive. I was precise. There is an enormous difference. Third, your work cannot be erased, only mislabeled. Raymond could call me support staff all he wanted. The strategy was still mine. The client saw it. The truth has a way of surviving long after the lie that tried to cover it. Fourth, do not destroy what you built just to punish someone. I did not want to burn Crestline down. I wanted it to function honestly. That is a more powerful goal than revenge, and it produces better results. And fifth, the people who dismiss you publicly are often the most afraid of you privately. Remember that the next time someone tries to make you small in a room full of people, you may already own half of what they are trying to impress everyone with. If this story moved you, taught you something, or reminded you of your own strength, please like this video, leave a comment below, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. More stories like this one are coming. And I promise you, they are worth staying for.